I'm going to walk through the Baileigh 24-inch box and pan break the way a shop owner or a school shop teacher actually thinks about it. No hype. Just the bits that matter when you're trying to decide if this is the tool that will let you turn flat sheet metal into usable parts without blowing your budget. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What you'll hear today is how the machine fits into a real-world workflow, where it saves you time, and where the compromises might bite you later. First off, the hesitation most people feel is simple. A brake that's advertised as industrial grade can still be a misfit if your projects don't line up with its capacity. The Baileigh model is a 24-inch upper beam, built from 16-gauge mild steel, and it promises a 135-degree bend range with 5 fingers of varying lengths. That sounds like enough room for a lot of hobby-level work, but the question is whether the size and the 16-gauge limit actually cover the pieces you'll be bending most often. If you're a hobbyist who usually works with 18 or 20-gauge sheet for things like brackets, light enclosures, or decorative panels, the 16-gauge maximum is more than adequate. The extra strength of the full-welded steel plate means there's very little flex when you pull the lever, so the bend stays true even after a dozen repetitions. I've seen a few makerspaces where the same brake was used to produce dozens of identical brackets for a small-scale furniture line. Each part came out with consistent angles, which saved a lot of time compared with hand bending. For an educational setting, the counterweight apron lift assist is a real plus. Students can apply the lever without straining, which lets the instructor focus on teaching bend geometry rather than watching kids wrestle with the machine. The 5 fingers let you experiment with different bend radii on the same piece of metal, which is handy when you're teaching concepts like factor or material spring back. The fact that the entire structure is welded rather than bolted together also reduces the chance of a loose joint showing up after weeks of use, a subtle durability point that matters when the tool sits in a classroom for years. Now, let's talk about where the value truly comes from. The 24-inch beam gives you a decent bite for medium-sized projects. Think automotive panels, HVAC ductwork, or larger brackets for a small shop. You can run a 24-inch length of 16-gauge steel across the whole width and still get a clean 135-degree bend. The 5-finger set means you can set up for a tight radius on one side of the sheet and a larger radius on the other without swapping tools, which cuts down on changeover time. Because the machine is all steel and not a mix of aluminum and plastic, you won't notice a wobble as you push the lever, which translates directly into less scrap. On the flip side, the same all-steel construction adds weight. The unit is not something you can casually roll around a garage. You'll need a sturdy floor and a way to move it, ideally a pair of steel casters or a small forklift. If you're setting up a temporary workstation in a cramped basement, you might find the footprint a bit imposing. The 16-gauge limit also means you can't push this brake into heavier sheet work like 12-gauge automotive panels or structural steel. Trying to bend something beyond that thickness will not only give you a poor result, it can also damage the fingers or the apron. Another practical consideration is the lever travel. The counterweight does make the lever easier to pull, but you still have to move it through a fairly long arc to achieve a full 135-degree bend. In a high-volume environment where you're making dozens of identical bends per hour, that motion can become repetitive. Some shops mitigate this by adding a pneumatic assist, but that's an extra expense you'd have to factor in. If your production runs are modest, say, a few parts a day or a weekly class project, the lever travel isn't a deal-breaker. Who should buy this brake? If you fall into any of these buckets, it's worth a serious look. A small fabrication shop that needs a reliable, mid-size brake for 16-gauge work, a community college or high school shop class that wants a durable unit that students can use safely, a serious hobbyist building custom brackets, enclosures, or art pieces, and who values consistency over sheer size. The machine's price point sits comfortably between entry-level manual brakes that often flex and the high-end CN-compatible brakes that cost several times more. For that niche, the Baileigh VB2416E delivers a lot of bang for the buck. Who should skip it? If you're a full-scale production shop that regularly bends 12-gauge or thicker, you'll quickly outgrow the 16-gauge ceiling. Likewise, if your workspace is limited to a small bench and you can't accommodate a 24-inch beam plus the required clearance for the lever, you'll be fighting the machine more than you'll be using it. Finally, if you need a fully automated solution that integrates